Hello, my wonderfully drowsy time travelers, my fellow lovers of slow-moving history and stories that melt your mind into dreams. Before we begin our journey to the distant past, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If these sleepy stories help you drift off, consider subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us create more content to lull restless minds to sleep. And if you're feeling extra cozy, leave us a comment. Tell us how long you lasted before dozing off. We love reading your experiences. Now, find your most comfortable position. Let your eyelids grow heavy and allow my voice to guide you into relaxation. Picture yourself standing at the edge of a vast, untouched wilderness. The air is cool, calm, moist with the breath of early morning. Mist curls softly through tall grasses and low trees. You hear the hush of wind moving through leaves and the faint rustle of something alive. But there are no roads, no fences, no signs, only earth and stone and sky. You are not in your time anymore. You are in theirs, the people of long ago, the earliest humans, wandering across endless wild lands, living slowly and dying young. But even then, there were babies, tiny, helpless, red-faced beings, born into a world with no hospitals, no doctors, no bottles, no soft blankets, and no instruction. So how, in a place so rough, so wild, so sharp around the edges, did they care for their young? How did life begin, when life itself was always at risk? Let's begin, not with birth, but just after, a newborn, slippery with the warm scent of blood and earth, held in bare arms, cradled close to skin. There are no cribs, no bassinets, no changing tables or diaper bags, just the mother, the ground beneath her feet, and the sky above. The child would be wrapped in whatever nature allowed: animal hides, woven grasses, maybe even moss, soft and moist, tucked beneath tiny limbs. No diapers, of course, only the gentle patience of constant care. Mothers, fathers, elders, all watching, all ready to lift, to clean, to comfort. There was no privacy, no rooms, no nursery painted soft blue or pale pink, only the camp, the fire smoke curling up into the air, the quiet murmurs of others nearby, and the constant fear that the baby's cry might carry too far. Predators listened, wolves, big cats, even birds of prey. To them, the sound of a crying infant meant weakness, opportunity. So, silence was survival, and comfort was a tool, a way to keep the child quiet and alive. Food, too, was always close. Not jars or spoons or sterilized bottles, but a mother's body, milk, rich and warm, flowing when it could, sparse when she was hungry herself, because nourishment was not guaranteed, not for the grown, and certainly not for the young. Hunger stalked the tribe like a shadow. Some days, bellies were full. Other days, only water, or bitter roots, or nothing at all. But a mother's milk would dry when her body weakened, and then the baby cried again and again until silence came in another form. But they did not give up easily. They carried their young against their chests, tied with leather straps or softened bark, always close, always warm, the heat of a parent's skin, the rhythm of breath, the steady beat of a heart. These were the lullabies. There were no toys, no rattles, no soft, plush animals, only pebbles, feathers, shells, textures and sounds that whispered to the child's curious mind. And yet, somehow, it worked. The human child grew, day by slow day, carried across miles of harsh terrain, rocky slopes, rushing rivers, dense forests, frozen plains, still held, still loved, still watched. But raising a baby in the Stone Age was not only about holding or feeding, it was about teaching, showing what dangers to avoid, what berries burned the tongue, what animals could not be outrun, and who to trust, because even within the small circle of the group, life was uncertain. Mothers might fall ill, fathers might disappear on hunts and never return. So babies were everyone's responsibility, an entire community shaped around keeping that small spark alive, not because it was sentimental, but because it was survival. The next generation was their future, and without it, the line would end, and the world would forget them. You see, there were no photos to mark a baby's first smile, no birth certificates, no written names, only memory, and hands, and quiet care. And when the night came, and stars poured slowly into the black sky, the baby slept to the sound of crackling fire. And the distant cries of creatures they could not name. There was no mattress, only fur, or grass, or bare skin. And beside them, a parent, still awake, listening, but always listening, because even sleep was a risk. But somehow, through the dark, through the cold, through hunger, they grew, and because they did, so did we. But the story of how they were raised, how they were soothed and fed and taught, that story has only just begun. In our next episode, we'll go deeper into the hidden wisdom of prehistoric parenting, how instincts shaped survival, and what modern science has finally begun to understand about the babies of the ancient world. For now, let your mind rest like a child wrapped in fur, safe beside the fire. Sleep well, dear traveler. Until next time. The fire has dimmed now, its glow a soft flicker against the stone, and somewhere In the hush of deep night, her baby breathes in sleep. But our story continues, because raising a child in the Stone Age was not just about keeping it alive. It was about shaping it in a world that never stopped testing them. You see, there were no schools, no paper, no books with pictures. Learning happened through watching and listening and doing. From the very first moments, tiny eyes scanned the faces around them. Every gesture, every movement held meaning, and language wasn't spoken the way we know it now. Words, if they came at all, were few, simple, soft. Much was shared through expression, through the eyes, through the hands, through rhythm and repetition. A child would feel the shape of a tool before understanding what it did. They would hear the crack of bone being split before knowing why it mattered. Their hand, clumsy at first, would mimic the actions of those older, smoothing hides, stirring embers, stacking small stones, and each small act was a quiet step toward survival. But danger was never far behind. There were no fences around their world, no medicine waiting on a shelf. A small cut could become a fever. A tumble near the fire could mean burns without healing. So children were watched, but never coddled. They learned quickly because they had to. And yet, there was tenderness in the way a mother hummed low, breathy notes as she held her child near, in the way older siblings shared scraps of food, even if their own bellies ached. There was no concept of mine or yours. Not with care, not with survival. A child could be passed from arm to arm, fed by one woman, washed by another, their cries hushed by a dozen gentle hands. And fathers, though often gone on the hunt, returned not only with meat, but with stories, tales not told with words, but with gestures, with mimed danger, with laughter and imitation. These stories became lessons. They taught the young how to read a track, how to tell if a shadow was wind or something watching. The babies grew into children. The children grew into hunters, gatherers, wanderers. But they never stopped learning. There were no calendars, no milestones. But still, things changed. Teeth came in. Steps grew stronger. Eyes became sharp. And slowly, the child began to walk, always near the adults at first, clutching the edge of a fur, tumbling over roots, crying when the sun grew too hot, or a thorn bit into their foot. But they walked, and in walking, they joined the rhythm of the group. The pace was always slow, not from choice, but from need. No one was left behind, and as the child moved with them, they saw how everything was you. A broken bone became a blade, a sharp stone became a tool. Even waste was carefully buried, far from where they slept. And yes, babies, without diapers, were cleaned with leaves, with snow, with ash, with water from nearby streams. Everything returned to the earth, and yet they stayed healthy, not because the world was clean, but because their bodies adapted. They were exposed early to dirt, to germs, to the tiny, invisible world we now fear. And in return, their immune systems grew strong. Or not, they didn't. Life was simple, but it was not gentle. Still, a baby's laugh could echo through the trees, a sign that for now they were safe, they were fed, they were growing. And when danger came, as it always did, the group moved together, babies wrapped tightly, hearts pounding, eyes scanning the brush. There were no lullabies of comfort, only the pulse of survival. But love, in its oldest form, was always there. Not the kind that needed words, but the kind that carried, that fed, that held, that protected. And it's this love, rough and raw and ancient, that let the human child thrive, even in the cold, even in hunger, even in the dark. But there is more to say, more about the rituals of early care, the strange, sacred gestures around birth and death, and the tools, so simple yet so clever, that made their lives just a little softer. We'll explore that in our next quiet chapter. For now, let yourself drift like a child rocked by firelight, your breath slow, your thoughts heavy, safe in the arms of time. Sleep well, and we'll meet again in the silence of the past. The night has stretched long and deep. The stars, once bright, begin to fade, and in the hush before dawn, the ancient world still turns. Somewhere, in the quiet of a small camp, a baby stirs, wrapped in softened hide, pressed against the warmth of another body, a slow breath. Then stillness again. This was their cradle, a body, a heartbeat, the earth. No wood was shaped into rocking chairs. No mobiliers hung above small eyes. Comfort, it existed in the simplest forms. Let us return now to those early days, to the ways they soothed, to the tools they shaped, and quiet rituals passed from hand to hand. Without words, you might imagine them rough, all stone and fire and bone, but within the rhythm of their lives, there was care, precision, intention. Take, for example, the making of a wrap. To carry a child against the chest, they softened bark, pounded it between stones, braided strips of hide, and cured them with smoke. The result, a sling worn across the body, leaving the mother's hands free, not crafted with fashion in mind, but survival. The child stayed close, felt every breath, listened to every wordless hum, and when the sun rose too high, they shaded their babies with branches, leaves woven into loose coverings. Simple, but effective. Insects were always a problem. Mosquitoes, flies, tiny creatures drawn to warm skin. So they rubbed their babies gently, with ashes, with crushed herbs, with mud, a natural barrier, cooling, soothing, keeping bites at bay. Their medicine was not bought. It was gathered, learned slowly, through trial, through pain. A root that eased fever, a leaf that stopped bleeding, hushed berry that brought deep sleep. Some of these were given to babies, tiny amounts, tapped onto the tongue. Others were used in rituals, in moments when a baby would not sleep or would not eat. A quiet circle of women, soft, chanting, the burning of herbs. Not magic, perhaps, but comfort for them, for the child. They believed that some illnesses were spirits, that colic was a curse, that a long, sleepless cry was a sign of something beyond the body. So they whispered over the child, touched its feet, braided tiny strands of grass, and tied them around ankles. The meaning has faded, but the intention remains clear. Love, fear, hope, all wrapped in one act. They didn't have calendars, but they noticed the moon, its changes, its pull. Some days they wouldn't name aloud, believing that birth on that day meant bad luck. So they would wait and pretend, say the baby came the next dawn or the night before. This wasn't deception, it was protection, a way to bend fate, took the child safe from forces they did not understand. Names came later, after the baby survived the first weeks, when the breathing was steady, the skin warm. Only then might they choose a sound, a word, to call the little one by. Until then, they were simply held. And in that holding, so much was shared. The feel of the world, the rhythm of speech, the heat of skin, and always the heartbeat, steady, slow, endlessly reassuring. Sometimes they would sing, not like we sing now, but low sounds, drawn from the chest, repeating, almost like breathing, a lullaby made of tone, of time. The baby would relax, muscles soft, mouth open just slightly, and sleep would return. They did not measure sleep in hours. There were no routines, no bedtimes, only night and tiredness and silence. The fire might still crackle or fade or be rebuilt, but the baby would be there, close to someone's skin, always close, because to be alone was to be lost. And so they stayed together through sickness, through storms, through hunger, through noise and fear and change. The baby always wrapped, always watched, always remembered, and in the end, the ones who survive were the ones who had been held the longest, the ones who heard songs, even if they didn't know they were songs, the ones who learned from skin, from breath, from rhythm. We often think of the Stone Age as brutal, and in many ways it was. But beneath the danger, there was tenderness, the quiet bending of a mother's body to make shade, the warming of a stone to lay near a sleeping child, the saving of a small bite of food for a mouth too young to chew. All of this was love before the word even existed, and there is still more to tell, more about the journey from infant to child, the first steps, the first injuries, the moment they were no longer carried, but expected to carry. We'll walk through that chapter soon, together. But for now, rest your mind, like a baby wrapped in high, under stars, safe in the arms of memory. Sleep well, dear traveler, until the next fire is lit, and the past calls once more. The fire is ash now, a faint glow beneath blackened wood. Dawn stretches pale fingers across the horizon, and the world stirs. In the shadows of low trees, a child begins to move, no longer cradled, no longer just held. This is the next part, the shift from carry to crawler, from soft sighs to sharp curiosity. The Stone Age child was never idle, even with no toys, no bright colors, no gentle music. There was always something to touch, to lift, it to follow. Pebbles warm from the sun, the flicker of a beetle's wing, the trickle of water down a shallow groove in stone. Learning came not from teaching, but from doing. Child touched everything, tasted bark, chewed grasses, poked sticks into holes in the earth, and every act held danger, but also meaning. Adults watched, but rarely stopped them, only when true risk appeared. Owned branch, a snake, a fire too close. Would they gently pull them away? In these moments, the child learned what to fear, not from words, but from reaction. From the sudden stillness in a mother's breath, the quick tightening of a hand on their shoulder. These were the first lessons, and slowly they added more. How to squat without falling, how to balance on shifting ground, how to follow without being seen. Children played, but their play was practice. Lifting small stone was training to lift larger ones. Pretending to grind nuts with pebbles prepared them for real work to come, imitating the motions of skinning a rabbit. Long before they were allowed to try, every day the child was absorbing the look of a hunter's focus, the posture of someone listening for movement, the silence needed when tracking prey, even their games, if you could call them that, taught them who was faster, who could climb higher, who remembered which root burned the tongue, and the line between child and adult was not sharply drawn. There were no birthdays to mark growth, only moments, only signs. when a child first sat still during a hunt, when they offered a piece of food before taking for themselves, when they cried less, listened more. These moments whispered that they were changing, that they were becoming. One of them, there were no celebrations, no parties, no special gifts, but sometimes a necklace made of shells or teeth would be placed gently around a neck, not to say, "You are grown," but perhaps, "You are learning, you are seen." And still, there were stumbles, illness, accidents, loss. Not every child made it to that quiet crossing. A fever could take them in a single night, a fall from a stone ledge, a bite that swelled and darkened the skin. And when they were gone, there was grief, but not the loud unraveling kind we know. It was quiet. The mother might sit alone. The father might stay out longer on the next hunt. No markers were left. No graves with names. Just a place, a memory, a shadow, and the others moved on because they had to. But even so, there were signs that the child had been loved. A small bracelet left behind, a softened hide folded with care, a rock placed at the base of a tree. They believed, perhaps, that the spirit returned to the earth, to the sky, to the fire, and that someday another child would come and the rhythm would begin again. But for the ones who stayed, who kept waking up each cold morning, their bodies grew, their steps strengthened, and the load they carried began to shift. At first, it was small, a piece of firewood, a handful of berries, but each year a little more, until one day the child no longer needed to be held. Instead, they helped hold others. That was the circle, so simple, so slow, so clear, but raised by many, shaped by the earth, and handed the tools that had once been too heavy to lift. These were not years marked by toys, or tests, or school books, but by the feel of flint against the palm, by the taste of wild honey stolen from a hive, by the silence that followed a shared look across a fire. And all along, the adults watched, not hovering, but present. Their lessons were few in words, but endless in example. And so the child became part of the world, woven into it like grass into a basket, taught by touch, by repetition, by presence, and always by love, a love shaped by survival, held in rough hands, warmed by breath. In our next chapter, we'll step even further into this early world, into what came next, the beginnings of belief, the small ceremonies around growth, and fading memory of infancy as new roles took shape. But for now, let your thoughts drift like embers in the wind. Let your breath slow. Let the child in your mind fade into the soft hush of time. Sleep deeply, sleep kindly, and we'll meet again where the fire still waits. The world is warmer now. The light has stretched farther, and the small ones are no longer small. The children once cradled in skin and fur are standing taller, their legs stronger, their voices beginning to echo in the spaces between trees. They are no longer carried. Now they carry. But does that mean in a world with no clocks, no schools, no finish lines, it means they begin to take part, not just as watchers, but doers. A young girl is taught how to grind roots with a stone, not all at once, but over time, her hands remembering the movement long before her mind does. A boy is handed the end of a spear, not to throw, not yet, but to hold, to feel the weight, to know where balance lives between tip and shaft. No lessons are spoken, only shown over and over until motion becomes memory, and memory becomes skill. They rise with the no one shakes them awake. The day does that, with light, with sound, with hunger. And they go, following the adults, watching their backs, mimicking footsteps that know where not to step. They are not forced, they are expected, because in that world, everyone matters. Every hand carries a purpose, even the smallest ones. Some carry firewood, others watch the younger children. Some gather herbs, others stir ashes to keep the flames from dying. Each small task is practice for the heavier ones to come. And still, there is childhood. It doesn't look like ours, but it is there, in the way they splash in shallow stream, in the chase of birds that will never be caught, in the laughter when one stumbles and the others fall beside them, pretending it was a game. There is no word for play, but it lives in their limbs, because joy is not a modern thing. It is old, it is wild, and it is needed to soften the weight of survival. But joy is always watched by the eyes of risk. A child who strays too far can vanish in a moment, into a thicket, into a river, into the jaws of something fast and unseen. So even freedom has edges, and as they growl, so do the stories, told not in bedtime books, but by the fire, by gesture, by sound, by pause. A story of the time a boy wandered and came back marked by claws. A story of the girl who heard whispers in the cave and was never the same again. These stories shape their fears, shape their choices, and slowly shape their beliefs, because belief always begins early, before words for gods, before temples, before rules. There was wonder and fear and silence, the night sky with its cold lights, the moon that changed shape and followed them, the wind that carried voices when no one spoke. Children felt it first, before the adults gave it names, before the elders gave it rules. A rustle in the grass was not just a breeze, it was a message. A shadow on the cave wall was not just light, it was something watching, and so they grew, not just in body, but in spirit. They learned what not to touch, where not to walk, when to be silent, and when to sing. Yes, sing not in melody, but in sound, in rhythm, in repetition. Some chants were passed from elder to child, not for beauty, but for memory, to remember a path, to mark a plant, to call for help without waking predators. And as they grew, the children became part of the great weaving of the group, trusted, needed, loved, not in a loud way, but in the quiet way that ancient people knew. A glance, piece of meat handed without asking, a place by the fire left open. Every away night, this was their coming of age. No candles, no celebrations, only time and the slow, unseen shift from being held to holding, from learning to knowing, and from needing protection to offering it. This is how they raise their children, with rhythm, with presence, with the patience of stone. And the result was us, but there is still more. The final rites, the secret signs, the moment when a child stopped being a child in the eyes of the tribe will drift there next, when the world darkens again, when the fire calls and memory returns. But for now, close your eyes. Let the sounds grow soft. Let the old ways hold you. Sleep deeply as they once did, beneath stars, wrapped in time. The sun is lower now, its gold fading into the edge of shadow, and the children, the ones who once slept in furs and followed footsteps, are nearly grown, their hands bare calluses, their backs bent with labor. There is still one step left, one quiet transformation from child to member. To one of them, this moment didn't come with a date, no invitation, no crowd. It came like everything else did, slowly, through quiet gestures and simple acts. It may begin with a hunt, not to watch, but to take part. Perhaps the child, now nearly an adult, is given a full spear, not just a shaft, not a practice tool, but the real thing, heavy, balanced, sharp. It rests in the hand differently now, not as something borrowed, but something earned. Or perhaps the shift happens beside the fire, when food is passed and no one waits to see if they will share, because now It is expected. Responsibility is no longer new. It is simply the shape of life. There may be a gesture, a piece of ochre painted across the cheeks, a necklace traded for a new one, a braid unwrapped, or a symbol carved near the sleeping space. None of it grand, none of it loud, but all of it deeply known. These small rituals, hard to explain now, were everything then. Not superstition, not theater, but memory made visible. Because growing up wasn't about age. It was about belonging, about being counted. And being counted meant being needed. It also meant knowing loss. Because now, the young adult would take part in burials, in watching fires go out, in the cold stillness after a final breath. There were no tombstones, but there were places, stones placed just so, objects laid beside bodies, a tool broken gently so it could go with the one who passed. And the young would see this, would learn the silence that followed. Another lesson, another layer of what it meant to be human. They would help dig, help carry, help remember, and later, in the wind, or in the sound of leaves brushing bark, they might hear the ones who left, whispering back. This too was part of becoming, and so they stood now among the others, no longer beneath them, no longer trailing behind, equal, still watched, but trusted. They could walk into the forest alone and return, not lost, but full, with root or meat or silence. They could sit beside an elder and not be sent away. They could speak and be heard. And in time, they too would cradle a child. The circle continued. One generation replaced the next. Not suddenly, not clearly. But slowly, like the passing of a shadow, like the cooling of stone. And so, the ancient world was kept alive, not by records, not by writing, but by rhythm and ritual and the bodies of the young growing in the strength of the old. There was no fame, no legacy carved in marble, but was memory, living memory, passed through hands, through work, through love. And though we will never know their names or hear their voices, we carry them in our instincts, in our fears, in our comforts, in our ways of holding the young, close, warm, safe. It all began here, with no crib, no diaper, no calendar, only skin, only breath, only time. In our final chapter, we'll reflect on what still lingers, what we still carry from those earliest days, and why, even now, in the quiet before sleep, the past still cradles us, but not yet. For now, let your thoughts grow soft, let your body settle, let the ancient silence wrap around you. You are safe, you are remembered. Sleep deeply, dear traveler, until we return. One last time. The air is still now. Even the wind has grown tired, and in the hush that settles just before sleep, we return one last time to the beginning, to the first arms that held us, to the world that had no words, but endless meaning. We have wandered far, through flickering fires, through silent forests, through the weightless dark of a world long vanished, and yet never truly left us. Because those early hands, the ones that cradled bone and bark, that softened skins and stirred ashes, they shaped more than children. They shaped us, the way we rock the restless, the way we hush in the dark, the way we watch our young sleep, as if the silence itself were sacred, all of it ancient, that carried forward not in books, but in instinct, in rhythm, in breath. The first humans had no formulas, no manuals, no glass thermometers, no lullabies in 12-tone scale, but they had patience, endurance, warmth, and they had the knowledge, earned slowly, that a child raised with touch would learn the world with less fear. They taught without teaching, and gave without measuring. They endured cold nights so their babies would sleep warm. They ate less so their little ones would eat enough. No names written, no monuments carved, but their legacy is everything. Every time a baby is swaddled, they are there. Every time a mother hums softly in the dark, their voices echo behind hers, and in every small gesture of care, the lifting of a child from the ground, the wiping of dirt from a tear-stained cheek, their hands move through ours. They knew hardship we'll never fully understand, but also strength that pulsed from heart to heart. So when we ask, how did cavemen raise their babies? The answer is not just in what they did, but in how they endured, how they listened, how they held on when the world around them offered so little certainty. They didn't need cribs or diapers or monitors. They had each other. They had the fire, and they had the rhythm of life passed down through the body, from womb to arms, from arms to earth. The journey was never perfect, but it was enough to carry life forward, enough to bring us here, to this quiet place, where we remember, even if we didn't know, we had forgotten. So now, let the story settle, like dust in the morning light. Let the images fade into warmth, into stillness, into sleep. You've walked through thousands of years tonight, felt the weight of stone and silence, heard the lullabies hidden in wind and fire, and now you rest, not alone, but carried still by those who came before. Close your eyes, let the stars return, let the ancient ways wrap around you, soft as fur, steady as breath. Sleep well, child of time. We'll see you again, where memory whispers, and the fire never dies, that lingers just a little longer now. The sky, not yet pale, the stars, not yet gone, and the past still whispers, there is more, even now, in the quiet between thoughts, because caring for the young was never just about survival. It was about connection, the space between two heartbeats, the warmth shared from chest to cheek, the rhythm of breath matching, settling, sensing, and so we asked, not what they had, but what they knew. They knew somehow that stillness calms, that sway soothes, that darkness is less frightening when a familiar shape is near. These things they didn't learn from books. They learned from watching, from failing, from trying again. They learned that wrapping a baby tightly quieted its limbs, that soft humming could steady even a fevered cry, and that silence, not absence, but presence without noise, was sacred. We forget sometimes that they had time, hours without words, moments when nothing happened except being a baby resting on a chest, the slow rise and fall of shared breath. There were no clocks telling them to move on, no appointments, no lists, just the fire, just the body, just now. And this gave space for bonds to grow strong, for infants to feel safe, anchored, known, even in a world that was wild, unforgiving, and often cold. There was a kind of wisdom, unspoken, but deep, deep, to hold a child without needing to speak, to understand cries, without needing to name them. This was their language, touch, note, tone, time. And every generation passed it on without needing to define it. We still see pieces of it today when a newborn calms to skin against skin, when rocking in arms brings sleep faster than any salt, when darkness feels safer with a heartbeat nearby. It's all still here, buried, perhaps under layers of noise and light, but not lost, because we come from those fires. We were shaped in those caves. We were first comforted by those ancient, wordless rituals. They didn't know science, but they knew rhythm. They didn't have psychology, but they understood the mind through the body, and so their ways endure quietly in the sway of a cradle, in the whisper of a bedtime voice, in the instinct to rock. When a child weeps, all of it echoes of a world where survival and softness were never separate. We may not remember their names, we may never see their footprints, but we live their choices, carry their instincts, repeat their rituals every time we choose. Stillness over noise, warmth over distance, presence over distraction, and perhaps that is enough in the next gentle chapter, We'll close this journey not with finality, but with reflection, a soft stepping back, a widening view, and the quiet understanding that even the simplest care can ripple through millennia. But for now, let your breath ease, let your body rest, let the long shadow of memory cradle you like they once did. Sleep well, traveler between times. The fire is still glowing, and you are still safe. The night is at its deepest now, a quiet, so thick it feels like a soft blanket. And here, at the edge of all stories, we come to rest. We have traveled far together, through ancient forests and flickering fires, through the silence of stone and breath. And now we look back one last time to those first arms that held life close, that rocked away fear, that whispered calm without words. They did not know what we know, no names for germs, no charts to track growth, no clocks to mark time, but they had something just as strong, a bond, an instinct, a rhythm, that slow pulse of care that beats beneath the noise of time. We carry that still, in the way we hold, in the way we hush, in the way we watch. And even now, when modern worlds rush by, when lights grow too bright and noise too loud, we still return in the quiet moments to skin on skin, to breath matching breath, to the simple act of being there. This is the legacy, not of tools, not of monuments, but of touch, of patience, of presence. It is the soft fire that keeps us warm when all else fades. So numb as your eyelids grow heavy and your breath slows deeper still, let the ancient rhythm carry you gently into dreams, safe, held, loved. Thank you, dear traveler, for walking this path, for listening to whispers from long ago. May your sleep be calm, may your dreams be kind, until we meet again, where the past and present fold into one another. Good night. The night is at its deepest now, a quiet, so thick it feels like a soft blanket. And here, at the edge of all stories, we come to pause, but not to end, because the story of care, of holding and growing, is endless. It flows like rivers beneath stone, like wind through ancient trees, like breath shared between mother and child. Tonight we rest, but tomorrow we will continue. There are more whispers to hear, more shadows to explore, more rhythms to follow. So for now, let your eyelids grow heavy, let your breath deepen, and know this, our journey is far from over. Sleep well, dear traveler, until the fire calls again. The fire's glow has faded now, and the forest has swallowed the last embers. Darkness stretches like a soft blanket over the sleeping world. You find yourself once again in that ancient place where time moves slowly and every breath is heavy with meaning. The story of how the earliest humans raised their young continues to unfold, layer by gentle layer. There is no rush here, only the quiet rhythm of days and nights, the slow dance of survival and care as the sun begins to rise beyond the trees. The first sounds of morning stir. Birdsong spills through leaves, soft and distant. A breeze carries the scent of damp earth and wild herbs, cool and fresh on your skin. In this waking world, the children of the Stone Age begin their day. They do not awaken to clocks or bells, but to the pulse of life itself. Their bodies stretch, limbs unfolding like new leaves in spring. Eyes blink slowly against the light, still heavy with sleep's embrace. The mothers and fathers have already begun their work, quietly moving through the shadows. The crackle of small fires, the soft murmurs of waking voices blend with the sounds of the forest. There are no cribs here, no neatly folded blankets or soft mattresses. Instead, the youngest are nestled close to their caregivers, wrapped in hides softened by time and use, skin against skin, breath mingling with breath, heartbeats sensing in the dawn hush. The simplicity of this closeness holds a profound wisdom, a knowledge that comfort is found not in objects, but in presence. As the day unfolds, you watch the children take their first steps into the world. No toys amuse them, no bright colors catch their gaze. Instead, the world itself is their playground, a smooth stone warmed by the sun, a fallen leaf drifting lazily in a shallow stream, the hum of insects, a faint and rhythmic whisper, their senses open wide. Every texture, every sound, every scent is a lesson. But this world is not without danger. A root, sharp and hidden beneath soil, could trip a small foot. A berry, sweet in taste, might be poisonous. The water from a certain pool could bring sickness. These dangers are learned slowly, through careful watching and gentle correction. The adults do not speak much, but their eyes are ever watchful. A quick catch of a falling child, a subtle pull away from a thorned bush, firm hand on a wandering shoulder. Each moment is a soft lesson, a silent teaching. The children learn to listen not only with their ears, but with their whole bodies. They learn to read the forest's subtle signs, to feel the change in the wind's whisper, to sense the approach of shadows. Long before the dangers appear, this learning is slow, measured not in days or months, but in small, steady steps. A stumble here, a fall there, but always a gentle hand to lift them again. As the sun climbs higher, the group moves together. Some gather berries, carefully avoiding those that cause burns. Others tend fires, keeping the warmth steady and safe. The children watch and imitate. A small girl picks up a pebble, turning it over in her hands. She grinds it gently against a larger stone, her brow furrowed in concentration. This simple act is practice, a preparation for the tasks she will one day perform. Nearby, a boy balances on a fallen branch, his eyes bright with the thrill of movement. He tests the strength of his legs, his arms outstretched for balance. These moments, seemingly mundane, are the building blocks of survival. Without toys or instruction manuals, the children learn through doing. But by trial, by repetition, there is a raw honesty in this, a clarity. Everything has purpose. Nothing is wasted. As the day wears on, the heat grows heavier. The forest offers little shade in places, and the children's skin glistens with sweat, but the rhythm never falters. The group rests briefly by a stream. The water is cold and clear, rushing over smooth stones. The children splash and drink, their laughter light and free. It is a rare moment of joy, a moment to soften the edges of hardship. But even in play, the lessons continue. A child dips a hand into the water, watching the ripples spread and fade. He learns cause and effect, movement and stillness. Nearby, a mother gathers herbs, her fingers skilled and sure. She teaches the children which leaves soothe bites, which roots help ease pain. These lessons are precious. They carry knowledge of life and death. And as the sun begins its slow descent, the group prepares to settle once more. Fires are rekindled, food is shared, the taste smoky and rich. The youngest are soothed with gentle touches, rocked softly against warm chests. The night will come again, and with it, the promise of rest. You can almost feel the steady pulse of life in this ancient circle, the balance of care and challenge, of freedom and safety, of growing into the world, step by quiet step, as your own breath slows and your eyelids grow heavier. Let the images fade gently. Let the story of the first caregivers wrap you in warmth. In the next part of our journey, we will delve deeper into the ways they comforted without word, how they soothed without cribs, how they held onto the fragile thread of new life when everything was raw and wild. But for now, rest, sleep, and let the past cradle you gently, like the softest fur against skin, until next time, when the fire calls us back once more. The forest is quiet now, wrapped in the gentle embrace of twilight. Shadows stretch long and soft, whispering secrets from the ancient earth. Here, in this sacred space between day and night, we return once more to the story of care, the way the earliest humans cradled their young, without cribs, without diapers, but with a deep and tender knowing. The sun has long since dipped below the horizon, but the firelight dances still, casting flickering shapes upon the faces. Those gathered close, the children, now sleepy and calm, nestle into the warmth of their caretaker's arms, their small bodies rising and falling in time with the steady pulse of the night. There are no lullabies sung here, no gentle melodies carried on soft winds, but the silence itself is a song, a quiet hum of breath and heartbeat, a rhythm as old as time. The hands that hold the babies are steady and sure, rough from years of work, but soft in these moments of tenderness. Every touch is deliberate, a language spoken without words. Fingers trace gentle patterns across small cheeks. Palms cradle tiny heads with infinite care. The world beyond the firelight is vast and wild, full of unknowns and dangers. But here, in the circle of warmth, there is safety. It is a sanctuary born of presence, not objects. No cribs stand between the child and caregiver, only skin and the soft pressure of arms. No diapers keep the mess away, only the patient knowledge that these moments are fleeting, and every cry, every sigh is part of a larger conversation. The children learn, even as they rest. They learn the comfort of closeness, the assurance of being held. The language of care is embedded deep in every gentle sway, every whispered breath. Outside the circle, the forest breathes, leaves rustle softly, and somewhere far away, the cry of an owl punctuates the night. The caretakers watch, their eyes heavy with fatigue, but alive with an ancient vigilance. They know that in this wild place, to raise a child is to carry hope itself. Every small life is precious, a fragile flame flickering against the wind, and so they hold fast. Even in the darkest hours, they cradle life with unwavering devotion. The night deepens, stars emerge, pinpricks of light studded across a velvet sky. The children's breathing slows. Dreams begin to take shape, shapes born not from stories, but from the rhythm of the body, the warmth of the touch, the steady presence of another. This is the oldest lullaby. No words needed, no music, except the sound of love itself. As the night stretches on, the fire dwindles to glowing embers. The circle tightens, and slowly the children move toward a new day. Each dawn brings new challenges, new lessons to be learned in the language of survival. But through it all, there is the thread of care, an unbroken line reaching back to those earliest days when the first humans held their young close to their hearts and found strength in the softness of touch as your own breath grows deep and even and your body sinks further into rest. Let this knowledge settle within you, that in the quiet spaces between life's noise, there is a pulse, steady and strong, of care passed down through countless generations. And though the world has changed and the ways of raising children have evolved, this ancient rhythm remains, waiting patiently to be remembered. In the next part of our journey, we will explore the subtle signals and silent understandings that connected parent and child in ways beyond words. But for now, let your mind grow still. Let your thoughts drift like leaves on a slow-moving stream. And let sleep come gently. The world of the earliest humans was filled with whispers, not of words, but of gestures and glances, of breath caught softly in the quiet spaces between heartbeats, longed before language blossomed, before sounds became sentences. There was a language older still, a language woven from touch, from scent, from the rhythm of bodies moving in harmony, in the gentle hold of a mother's arms, in the steady heartbeat felt against a child's ear. There was a conversation, one that needed no words, one that spoke directly to the soul. This silent understanding was the thread that held together the fragile tapestry of life. Imagine a newborn, small and fragile, wrapped not in cloth or blankets, but in warmth of skin, a warmth that carried the scent of safety, the scent of the tribe, the scent of home. The child's cries rise and fall like distant thunder, sometimes urgent, sometimes soft as fallen leaves. But the caretakers do not rush. They listen with more than their ears. They feel with their whole bodies, a shift in breathing, a slight tightening of tiny fists, a fluttering of eyelids, each a word in the silent dialogue. Hands move gently, tracing the curve of a cheek, soothing with the slow circle of a fingertip. The touch is deliberate, a balm against the unknown. In this way, the caregivers read their young, not by spoken command, but by instinctual knowing. The small ones learn too. They learn the comfort of closeness, the trust built in each quiet moment, the sway of a body rocking softly beneath the stars. They come to understand that the world is less frightening when held close to a beating heart. Outside the protective circle, the wild breeze, the rustle of dry leaves, the snap of a twig underfoot, the distant call of birds settling for night. All these sounds speak of a world full of life and danger. Yet within the circle there is calm, born of presence, of watchfulness, of the timeless dance between protection and freedom. The caregivers move with care, their senses sharpened by necessity, eyes scanning the shadows, hands ready to catch, bodies poised to shield, and yet their movements are gentle, soft as moss underfoot, quiet as the fall of dusk. Each gesture is a promise, a pledge to guard this fragile spark of life from the uncertainties of a harsh world. The touch of a mother's hand is like the brush of wind through grass, soft, steady, unwavering. It reassures the child, tells them without words, "You are safe here." This is a language spoken in silence, felt in every tender caress, in every shared breath. It carries forward through time, passed from one generation to the next, etched into the very marrow of what it means to be human. The children grow surrounded by this quiet conversation. They learn to watch, to listen, to feel, to understand the language of the forest, the signs whispered in shadows, the messages carried by the wind. They watch how adults respond to the subtle shifts in their own young ones. A slight change in posture, a flicker of the eyes, a restless sigh, and slowly they learn to care, to soothe, to hold. They learn that care is not always loud or hurried. Sometimes it is stillness. Sometimes it is patience. Sometimes it is simply being there. The environment itself teaches them. The rough bark of ancient trees, the coolness of stones warmed by sun, the scent of earth and rain, all these shape their senses. They come to know which plants bring healing, which waters quench without harm, which paths lead to safety. This knowledge is not written down, not spoken in lectures, but lived, breathed, felt in the slow unfolding of days and nights. The rhythm of care becomes part of their being, the rising and falling of the chest, the warmth of shared skin, the hush of the forest after the storm, all become lessons in love and survival. There is an intimacy here, a deep connection that cannot be broken, because to raise a child in this wild world is to hold a promise that life will continue, that hope will not fade, that even in darkness there is light. The nights are long and the world can be harsh, but the closeness of bodies, the softness of touch, the ancient cadence of breath and heartbeat all weave a shield around the smallest, and in this shield there is peace, peace born not of certainty, but of trust, trust in each other, trust in the slow, steady flow of life. So as you lie still, letting the quiet settle, imagine yourself wrapped in this ancient embrace. Let the rhythm of those first caretakers slow your breath, ease your mind, and carry you gently towards sleep. The story is far from over. There are still many whispers left to hear, many shadows left to explore, many soft steps yet to take. But for now, let the silence speak. Let the past hold you close, and sleep The forest breathes softly under the twilight sky. Its shadows stretch wide and calm, like a slow river flowing through the bones of the earth. Here, in the gentle hush of the ancient world, the story of care continues. A story as old as time itself. The earliest humans, moving slowly through the rhythms of day and night, held their children close in ways both simple and profound. No cribs stood between them, no blankets carefully folded in neat piles. Instead, there was the soft press of skin against skin, the warmth of breath mingling with breath, and the quiet strength of presence. In this world, every touch spoke volumes. A gentle stroke soothed a restless child. A firm embrace offered protection against the unseen dangers lurking just beyond the firelight. The infants learned from these touches. They learned safety. They learned trust. They learned that in the vast, wild world, there was a place just for them, held close in the arms of those who loved them. The sounds of the forest wove around them, a constant lullaby of leaves rustling, of distant calls from creatures hidden in the dark, and the steady crackle of the fire. These sounds were not frightening, but familiar, woven into the very fabric of their being. The children's senses opened slowly to this world. The rough texture of bark beneath small fingers, the coolness of river stones warmed by the sun, the subtle sense of earth and growing things. Every moment was a lesson, every experience a building block. The caregivers, too, moved with care. Their eyes were sharp and watchful, alert to every subtle signal from their young. Tightening of a small hand, a change in breathing, a flicker of eyelids. Each was a message, a word in the silent language of care. They responded not with hurried words, but with patience, with the slow, steady rhythm of touch and presence. The days passed in a gentle cadence, sunrise to sunset, breath to breath. Each moment shaped the bond between child and caretaker, a bond forged in quiet understanding and enduring love. The environment itself played a part. The forests, rivers, and fields were teachers, offering lessons in survival, in respect, in harmony. Children learned to recognize the safe and the dangerous, which plants could nourish, which waters could heal or harm, which paths to follow and which to avoid. This knowledge was never spoken aloud, but passed down through experience, through touch, through watching and doing. The absence of written words or formal instruction did not diminish its power. In fact, the lack of distraction, no loud noises, no flashing lights, no rushing from place to place, allowed these lessons to sink deep, becoming part of the very bones of those who learned them. As evening fell, the circle of care tightened once more. The fire's glow flickered, casting long shadows that danced gently over faces and forms. Babies and children nestled close, their small bodies soothed by the steady warmth of those who held them. There was no rush to rest, no urgency to silence every sound. Instead, there was time to breathe, time to feel, time to simply be. In these moments, the earliest humans discovered that love and survival are intertwined, that to care for a child is to care for the future itself. And so the night carried on, soft and slow, wrapped in the timeless rhythm of breath and heartbeat, as your own breath grows steady and slow, and your eyelids begin to flutter close. Let the warmth of this ancient care cradle you. Know that you are part of a long chain of tenderness and trust, woven through countless generations. And when you awaken, the story will be waiting, ready to carry you further into the soft, quiet task. Sleep well, dear traveler. The forest holds its breath beneath a sky, brushed with soft shades of twilight, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and distant rain. In this ancient world, time moves like a slow river, unfolding gently, without hurry or rush. The story of care, of how the earliest humans cradled their young, continues quietly in the spaces between heartbeats, in the warmth that passes skin to skin, in the silent understanding shared without word. Babies nestled close, their small bodies rising and falling in rhythm with those who hold them. The steady beat of a caregiver's heart is the first lullaby, older than any song ever sung. The world outside is vast and full of whispers. Leaves rustle in the breeze. Insects hum their quiet songs, and the distant call of animals threads through the trees. But here, in this sacred circle, there is safety. The tactile language of touch speaks volumes. A gentle stroke along a cheek, a soft brush of fingers through hair, the soothing press of a palm on a tiny back. Each movement is a promise, a pledge of protection, a vow to keep the fragile flame of life burning bright, without cribs or blankets, without diapers or swaddling cloths. The earliest humans relied on the rhythm of presence, the rhythm of holding close, of rocking gently, of breathing in time. This rhythm is a dance older than memory itself. It is in the slow rocking of a body beneath the stars, the sway that quiets the smallest cries, the warmth that speaks louder than words. The children learn in this quiet world. They learn to recognize the difference between comfort and danger, between safety and the unknown. The forest teaches them, each leaf and stone, each rustle and whisper, a lesson in survival and care. They learn which plants soothe the sting of a bite, which roots ease a fever, waters quench without harm. This knowledge is not spoken, it is felt, it is lived through the patient watchfulness of their caretakers, through the steady beat of touch and breath. The children grow strong. They learn to read the world with their senses, to move carefully through shadows and light, to find comfort in closeness and safety in the quiet strength of those who love them. The adults move softly, their eyes sharp, their hands steady and sure. They respond to every subtle signal, a shift in posture, a change in breathing, a flicker of the eyes. Each small movement is a word, each sigh a sentence in the silent conversation of care. The days pass in gentle waves, light spilling over the earth at dawn, the slow crawl of shadows at dusk. The circle tightens at night, the fires glow soft and warm, the children nestled close, their small bodies soothed by the steady pulse of love. There is no rush here, no frantic hurry to quiet every sound, only the slow unfolding of care, the patient weaving of trust and safety. And in this slow dance, life endures. The fragile thread of new life is held tight, cradled in hands roughened by work, softened by love. The cycle continues, unbroken, through countless generations, and as your breath slows and your body sinks deeper into rest, let this ancient rhythm carry you. Let the warmth of these first caregivers wrap around you like a soft cloak. Know that you are part of this long, quiet story, a story of touch, of breath, of the gentle power of present. And though the world has changed, and the ways of care have grown more complex, the heartbeat of this ancient knowledge still beats within us all. Sleep now, held in the cradle of time. The journey is not yet done. There are more stories waiting in the shadows, more whispers carried on the wind, and when you awaken, we will continue together, walking softly through the past, listening to the quiet language of care. Good night, dear traveler. The forest whispers softly as night deepens, its breath slow and steady beneath a canopy of stars. Here, in the gentle darkness, the story of care unfolds once more. A story as old as the earth itself, the earliest humans, moving with deliberate calm, held their children close against the chill of night, their bodies pressed together in silent communion. No cribs stood as barriers between parent and child. No soft blankets shielded from the world's rough edges. Instead, there was the raw, warm touch of skin, the steady rhythm of breath, the unspoken promise of protection. In this quiet embrace, the child found safety, a refuge from the vast and wild unknown. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. The soft rustle of leaves whispered ancient lullabies, and the distant hoot of an owl punctuated the stillness. The night was alive with sound, yet within this circle of care there was peace. Every movement was gentle, every touch deliberate. A hand brushed softly along a cheek, fingers traced slow circles on a tiny back. The caregivers watched keenly, reading every sigh, every shift in posture, every flutter of eyelashes. This silent language, spoken without words, carried the weight of survival and love. Children learned to listen, not just with their ears, but with their whole bodies, to the subtle changes in the world around them, to the quiet signals from those who cared for them. The forest taught its lessons in texture and scent. The rough bark of a tree, the cool smoothness of river stones, the faint aroma of wildflowers and herbs, all became part of the child's growing understanding. They learned which plants soothed the skin, which roots eased pain, which waters healed, and which could harm. This knowledge was never spoken aloud. It was passed down through touch, through watching and doing, through the steady rhythm of days and nights. The cycle of care was slow and deliberate. There was no hurry to silence every cry, no rush to control every movement. Instead, there was patience and acceptance of the slow unfolding of life as the sun rose and fell. The children grew, their senses sharpening, their bodies strengthening. They learned to move carefully through the underbrush, to watch the changing sky, to read the signs in the wind and the trees. Each small success was met with gentle encouragement, a steady hand to catch a stumble, a soft voice to soothe a fear. The community moved as one, a living, breathing circle of care and protection. Evenings were spent gathered around fires, the flames casting warm, flickering light over tired faces. Stories were not told in words, but in the shared experience of being, in the closeness of bodies, in the rhythm of breathing, in the silent watchfulness of love. The children felt this love in every touch, in every breath, in every heartbeat. It was a language written on the skin, etched deep into memory. And as the night deepened, the world outside grew quiet, wrapped in a cloak of stars and shadow. Within the circle, the fire's warmth persisted, a beacon of safety against the dark unknown. The children, soothed and comforted, drifted slowly towards sleep, held in the steady embrace of those who loved them. This ancient dance of care, this timeless bond between caretaker and child, carried on through countless generations, a steady thread weaving life into the fabric of time as your own breath slows and your body sinks deeper into rest. Let this story wrap around you like a soft, warm blanket. Let the rhythm of ancient hearts guide you gently toward dreams. Know that you are part of this endless chain. Now, this unbroken circle of care. And when you awaken, we will continue our journey, softly stepping deeper into the past, listening still to the quiet language of love and survival. Sleep well, dear traveler. The dusk settles gently across the ancient land, casting long, soft shadows beneath the towering trees. The earth breathes beneath a sky fading from soft pinks to deep indigo, and the air is filled with the faint scent of moss and wildflowers. Here, in this slow-moving world, the story of nurturing life continues, carried on the quiet breaths of those who came before. The earliest humans understood care in its most primal form, not through words or written signs, but through touch, presence, and the delicate rhythm of daily life. In the absence of cribs and swaddling cloths, infants were held close, their tiny bodies warmed by the steady pulse of those who carried them, skin against skin, breath mingling with breath. They found comfort in proximity, in the gentle sway of bodies moving as one. The night air whispered through the leaves, a soft murmur that lulled the smallest ones to rest. No lullabies were sung, but the silent song of a heartbeat was enough, a melody older than language itself. The caregivers were vigilant yet gentle, their hands steady as they soothed restless limbs, their eyes keen to every flicker of expression, every subtle sigh or shift. This unspoken communication formed the foundation of trust, a trust that allowed the young to feel safe, even in a world full of unseen threats. The children's senses awakened gradually, the rough texture of bark beneath their fingertips, the cool splash of river water on warm skin, the earthy scent of soil after rain, each sensation deepening their connection to the world. These experiences were lessons taught not in words, but in the language of touch and feeling. The caregivers showed patience beyond measure. There was no rush to silence every cry, no hurry to hurry the unfolding of life's delicate stages. Instead, they moved in harmony with the rhythms of nature, with the rising and falling of the sun, the shifting winds, the gentle pulse of the earth beneath their feet. The children learned through observation and imitation, through trial and error, always supported by the watchful eyes of their community. They discovered which plants could heal, which waters were safe to drink, which paths led to shelter and which to danger. This knowledge was embedded deeply within them, passed down through touch, presence, and quiet guidance. As evening approached, the community gathered close, forming a circle of warmth and light around the fire. The flickering flames painted their faces with soft hues, and the night was filled with the steady hum of breathing, the subtle rustling of leaves, and the occasional crackle of burning wood. Within this circle, the children were soothed and comforted, their small bodies relaxed against the steady warmth of those who held them. There were no toys, no distractions, only the simple power of human connection. This connection was the thread that bound them together, that wove a tapestry of love, safety, and longing. As the night deepened, the fire's glow softened to embers, and the world outside grew still. The children drifted into sleep, cradled by the gentle hands and steady hearts of their caregivers. The bond between them was unbreakable, a silent promise whispered across the ages. As your breath grows slow and even, and your body sinks deeper into rest, let this ancient story wrap around you like a soft shawl. Feel the rhythm of care beating through time, steady, unwavering, eternal, and know that you are part of this long and gentle legacy. When you awaken, our journey will continue, leading us softly through the echoes of the past, listening still to the quiet language of care and survival. Sleep well, dear traveler. The forest exhales slowly beneath a sky mottled with stars, its ancient trees standing sentinel over a world both wild and tender. Night drapes its velvet cloak gently across the land, softening edges, blurring lines between shadow and light. Within this quiet world, the story of care whispers on, carried by the breath of those who nurtured life in its most fragile form. Long before cribs were built, before the soft rustle of diapers, the earliest humans knew the language of presence. Skin against skin, breath mingling with breath, they held their young close, letting the warmth of their bodies become a shield against the unknown. The night air carries the faint scent of pine and damp earth, a mingling of the wild and the sacred, the rustle of leaves, the soft call of distant creatures, all weave a gentle lullaby. No spoken words are needed here. The silence itself is a song, a steady pulse of love and vigilance. Caregivers move with practiced grace, their eyes sharp and tender. They listen not just with ears, but with the quiet language of touch and presence. A subtle shift in the infant's breathing, a flutter of lashes, the faintest change in posture, each a message, each a call to action, wrapped in patience. The hands that soothe are both strong and soft, paradox that speaks to the ancient wisdom woven through countless generations. The children learn through sensation, the rough bark beneath their fingers, the cool rush of water over skin, the earthy scent of rain on soil. Each texture, each sound, each scent becomes a thread in the tapestry of understanding. Through this slow, deliberate process, they come to know the world and their place within it. The forest itself is a teacher, its lessons spoken in whispers of wind, in the quiet shift of seasons, in the steady rhythm of sun and moon. There is no rush. In this education, no demand for speed or mastery. Instead, there is patience, the slow unfolding of growth, the gentle nurturing of strength. The circle of community moves as one, a living, breathing web of care and protection around the fire's warm glow, faces lit by flickering light. The children rest, held close and cradled in steady arms. The fire crackles softly, heartbeat in the night, its warmth a beacon against the dark. The children feel the steady pulse of life, the sure presence of those who watch over them. No toys or distractions break this quiet bond, only the simple power of touch, the unspoken language of love. The smallest bodies rise and fall in time with the earth's breath, finding comfort in the slow, steady rhythm of shared existence. And as the night deepens, the world outside fades into a gentle hush, wrapped in the soft folds of dreams yet to come. The bond between caretaker and child is an unbroken thread, a silent promise carried on the wind, woven through the fabric of time as your own breath slows and deepens, and your body sinks into the quiet embrace of rest. Let this ancient story soothe you. Let the warmth of countless generations wrap around your spirit like a soft, protective shawl. Know that you are part of a chain that stretches back to those first gentle hands, that first heartbeat close against tiny skin. And when you awaken, our journey will continue, softly stepping forward into the past, listening still to the quiet language of care, survival, and love. Sleep well, dear traveler. The forest breathes quietly under a skies sprinkled with stars, its ancient limbs swaying gently in the soft night breeze. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and pine needles, a fragrant reminder of the wild world beyond the circle of firelight. Within this quiet sanctuary, the timeless story of care unfolds, a story written not in words, but in the gentle language of touch, presence, and breath. Long before the invention of cribs and diapers, before the soft rustle of swaddling cloths, the earliest humans held their young close, their bodies pressed together in a silent promise of protection, skin to skin, breath mingling with breath. They found comfort and safety in the warmth of one another. The night carries a symphony of subtle sounds, the rustling of leaves, the distant call of an owl, the crackling of firewood. These sounds weave a lullaby older than memory, a song that soothes the smallest ones into peaceful rest. The caregivers move with deliberate calm, their hands gentle and sure, their eyes watchful yet tender. They respond to every subtle signal, a flicker of eyelids, a shift in breathing, a small sigh or restless movement. This silent dialogue of care is woven through touch and presence, a language spoken without words, but understood deeply by both giver and receiver. The children learn through sensation, the rough texture of bark beneath small fingers, the coolness of river stones warmed by the sun, the earthy scent of rain soaked soil. Each sensation is a lesson, each moment a thread In the fabric of survival, the caregivers teach patience, the patience to listen, to wait, to move with the slow rhythm of life. There is no rush here, no hurry to silence cries or control every movement. Instead, there is acceptance, an understanding that growth unfolds at its own pace. That learning is a gradual dance. The environment itself is a teacher, its seasons shifting gently, its winds whispering secrets, its waters flowing steady and sure. The children learn which plants soothe pain, which waters nourish without harm, which paths lead to safety. This knowledge is passed down silently, through touch, through watching, through doing. The circle of care tightens as the sun dips below the horizon. Around fires glow, faces bathed in warm light. The children rest in the arms of those who love them. There are no toys, no distractions, only the quiet power of presence. The fire crackles softly, its warmth a beacon in the dark. The children's breathing slows, their small bodies relaxing into sleep, held safe and sound. This ancient bond between caretaker and child is a thread woven through time, promise of love and protection, passed from one generation to the next. As your own breath slows and deepens, and your body sinks deeper into rest, let this story enfold you. Let the warmth of countless generations wrap around you like a soft shawl. Know that you are part of this enduring legacy, a chain of care stretching back through the ages. And when you awaken, we will continue our journey together, walking softly through the echoes of the past, listening still to the quiet language of love, survival, and gentle care. Sleep well, dear traveler. The ancient forest lies wrapped in quiet, a soft shroud of mist drifting low among the trees. Its vastness is gentle tonight, the world breathing slow and steady, a lullaby older than any spoken word. Here, in the embrace of shadows and moonlight, the story of care continues to unfold, pale, as timeless as the earth itself. Long before the first cribs were woven, before diapers softened the world's touch, the earliest humans knew a different way. They held their young close, bodies pressed skin to skin, sharing warmth and breath, creating a sanctuary of presence and touch. The night air is filled with subtle sounds, the whisper of leaves, the murmur of distant streams, the gentle rustle of creatures stirring. These sounds are a cradle, a soft song that carries the smallest ones into the quiet realm of dreams. Caregivers move with slow grace, their eyes attentive, their hands steady. They read the silent signals of their young, a flutter of eyelids, a shifting breath, a slight movement, each a message, each met with gentle response. The language of care is unspoken, woven through touch and presence, a delicate dance of connection and trust. Children learn through sensation, the roughness of bark beneath tiny fingers, the cool splash of river water, the scent of earth warmed by the sun. Each sensation teaches, each moment builds understanding. Patience guides the caregivers. There is no rush to silence every cry, no hurry to hasten growth. Instead, there is acceptance, a deep knowing that life unfolds in its own time, that care is a slow and steady rhythm. The environment is their teacher. Seasons shift with quiet certainty. Winds whisper ancient secrets. Waters flow steady and sure. The children come to know the world, which plants heal, which waters nourish, which paths lead to safety. This knowledge passes quietly, through watchful eyes, through gentle hands, through shared days and nights. As darkness falls, the community gathers close around the fire. The flames flicker softly, casting warm light on faces, tired but calm. The children rest in arms that hold without question, their bodies soothed by steady warmth. There are no distractions, no toys or sounds to break the quiet, only presence. The fire crackles gently, a heartbeat in the night, its warmth a beacon against the dark. Children's breathing slows, their small forms sink deeper into sleep, held safe in the circle of care. This bond between caretaker and child is a thread spun through countless generations. Home is whispered in silence, woven into the fabric of life itself. As your own breath lengthens and softens, and your body relaxes into stillness, let this ancient tale carry you. Wrap yourself in the gentle embrace of those first tender hands, those steady hearts. Know that you belong to this chain, this enduring circle of love and protection. And when you awaken, our journey will continue. Soft footsteps leading deeper into the past, listening still to the quiet language of survival, care, and quiet strength. Sleep well, dear traveler.